Hey ladies, this is Leslie Tavernier, and I am here to help you to transmute your anxious attachment into power. So I am a dark feminine love coach, and I have dedicated this part of my life to helping women who suffer from anxious attachment to celebrate and embrace their love for their avoidant, narcissistic, emotionally unavailable, dark masculine man. And why should you embrace your love for such a man? Because that's how you get to experience the spiritual benefits of this least understood relationship dynamic. And so today I have with me here my dark masculine man, and he's going to support us in understanding your dark masculine man. So without further ado, Rakem Sekou, can you introduce yourself to my listeners?
Peace and blessings. My name is Rakim Sekou. That's my spiritual name. Also go by Carly Stevens Jr. I am the co-founder of the Mystery School. I am a coach for relationships. I support women and men in obtaining what they desire for the relationship and life in general.
Thank you so much, Rakem. So I have a lot of questions for you today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to answer these questions. So the first thing I'm going to ask you about is something called the love bombing sequence or the love bomb sequence. And this is something that a lot of women have said to me. They've said that their dark masculine man, their avoidant man, their womb choice, love bombed them in the beginning of the relationship. So I'm going to explain the sequence. This sequence is talked about with both men and women that are labeled avoidant as well as narcissistic. And so there's three main components. And so it starts with the love bomb, which is another term for that is intense idealization. And that's where he gives her excessive affection, compliments, gifts, declarations of love. He seems to want to move towards a committed relationship. And so, in so doing, it is said that the woman then becomes vulnerable. She lets her guard down because he's being so loving towards her. And so now she's in love with him because of his love bombing. And then he then proceeds to the next phase, which is the devaluation. And that's where he begins to devalue her and he starts to criticize her. And he is said to project his anger and his hatred of his mother onto her. And so he starts to make this woman feel like shit. And then the third phase is where he discards her. This is where he blocks her, he ghosts her, he suddenly withdraws from her, and she's left wondering what the hell just happened. So I would like to hear your perspective as a man who has been womb chosen, who is a dark masculine man to multiple women. I would like to hear your perspective on the love bombing sequence, and I would also like to know if you have ever done any of these things, love bombing, devaluing, discarding, with any of your girlfriends or wives.
Okay. Well, the answer to the second question is no, I haven't done any of those things. But this is a complex conversation. Okay. So why would somebody do that? Why would somebody, and what you're basically saying is with the love bombing, they're artificially inflating the intimacy and the connection on purpose for so that the woman can be attached to the man.
Yes.
Um, and then they're devaluing and then they're letting the person go. So I haven't done that intentionally. I think one thing that people need to understand is, again, the culture, the dating culture of monogamy that we live in, it does require you to do that at times. And so let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean is that, people have in their minds this fantasy of romance. People have in their mind this fantasy of marriage and fantasy of relationships. And the bottom line is the fantasy is not real. So I'm not saying that there are no situations where people have this like deeply connected, powerful, romantic relationship, that it actually authentically involves gifts and all these words of affirmation and all these things and the romance and every day and 24/7 and communication for the rest of your life and the passion for the rest of your life. I'm not saying it doesn't actually happen in some cases. In most cases, it does not. And so what people understand is when they look at the culture that we live in, the culture of monogamy and the dating culture of monogamy and the romantic culture of monogamy, they understand that they're going to have to show up big in many cases in order to get the person to actually like them. Now, that might not be true. I'm not saying that's a truth, right? But a lot of people think that way. So let's go back to the basics of dating in monogamous culture, where everybody's putting their best foot forward. So the first date, you look your best and you're talking your best. You're hiding a lot of the things about yourself that you feel the person might get turned off on or turned off about, because you don't want them to, not like you anymore or not date you anymore. So in the monogamous culture of dating, you really can't show up in your authentic self. Meaning, like, we know when we go on our first date or first start talking to somebody, there's a series of things that the person would probably want to know about us that we know, but we're not going to offer those things because we feel it's going to put us in a negative light with that person. So what happens is people get into the habit of putting their best foot forward. They withhold certain truths about themselves because they don't want the person not to like them. And in some cases, when the person really wants this person bad and they don't have confidence in themselves, right? They'll do the thing that you're calling love bombing. They'll put all this energy forward. They'll put all of this time, all of these gifts, all of these things forward in a very extreme way, because they want the person to like them. They want the person to be with them. They want to be, seen as somebody that they're really into, et cetera. So it's a natural thing to actually do that in many cases. I really want to impress the person. I really want them to, show up for me and like me and all these things. So yeah, people do that. People do that. Again, that's a regular thing we see in just regular dating, right? The issue is people are saying, and what I think the difference is, what people are saying, well, the person never intended to really actually be with this person because they've got this narcissistic personality disorder. And we don't know that to be true or not. Okay, so let me keep going with this. So yeah, so they're laying it on really thick. They're doing all these things, all this communication, all these gifts, all this time, passion, 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 really trying to impress the person. Well, we know that that's not realistic. Okay. Like, if you're going to be like that, and you're not authentically that way, um, you're not going to be able to sustain it. Right. So what happens is inevitably is the person's not going to be able to sustain it. Now, this is both cases, whether they're quote unquote narcissistic or they're just a regular person who's really trying to impress the person. You're not going to be able to sustain that level of passion and intensity and connectiveness and all that kind of stuff that you led with to get this person to like you. So then what happens when you can't sustain it? When you can't sustain it, what happens? The person says, oh, you're not being consistent. They accuse you of being inauthentic. And so as a defense mechanism with some people, again, because most of the people who do this are not actually clinically narcissistic. That's an overused word. But what most people do is they also get defensive. They say, well, you're asking for too much, or you're begging, or you're needy, you're doing all these things. So they're basically implying you didn't appreciate the efforts I put forth. You're trying to make that something I've got to do for the rest of my life, or I'm a bad person, or I'm inauthentic. When really I was courting you. I was doing all the things that I've been told that men need to do and women need to do in order to actually get the person to like me and to have feelings for me and to say yes to dates and stuff like that. But now that I'm not able to sustain that anymore, you want to call me a bad person. So now I have to say to you, well, you're actually the bad person. Your expectations for relationships are way over the top. And so that's where the quote unquote devaluing comes in. Right? The devalue comes in because the person who was doing these things in the beginning is now feeling offended, or they're getting defensive, that type of thing. And again, the important thing to understand about this is everyone's not aware that they're doing this. When people are quote unquote love bombing, everyone's not aware they're doing that. Yeah, the very, very small percentage of people in the country who are actually clinically narcissistic personality disorder, yes, they might be doing that intentionally. But most people don't really do that. For them, it's courting. For them, it's dating. For them, it's trying to impress the person. We all know everybody's trying to impress the person. So when they get accused of not being consistent because they can't maintain that level of courting, then they get defensive, and that's when the quote unquote devaluing happens. And obviously, when you get to that stage, stage two, the only place to go from there, if you don't have any help, don't have any support, and you're not elevated in your thinking or progressive in your thinking, is you have to exit the relationship. Why? Because now you guys are arguing back and forth. You're not being consistent. Well, you're expecting too much, and back and forth for weeks and months, and eventually you just say this is not worth it. So to me, that's more of the cycle that we see, and that's demanded in many cases inside of dating monogamous culture. You have to quote unquote put your best foot forward. There's only certain people. There's so much competition to be with a person and to find a person, that people are kind of in this particular zone of behavior. Now, again, I'm not justifying it, but what I'm trying to explain to you and your listeners is that this is a part of the culture that we live in. Now, what you don't normally see are people showing up authentically. And what that means is they're able to tell their truth out the gate. Yeah, these are my weaknesses, on date number one or date number two. These are my weaknesses. These are the issues I have. These are the addictions I have. This is my credit score. This is my financial situation. This is my debt situation. These are the exes I was with, and this is what they said about me in terms of my toxicity, those types of things. Like, those discussions are rarely had early on in a relationship. But we can agree that those are things we actually want to know. I want to know before I date a woman, okay, how have you functioned in your past relationships? Were you accused of being crazy? Were you stalking your person? Were you calling them repeatedly? And what I'm saying, machine gun texting? Were you doing toxic things? Were you see what I'm saying? Like, I would want to know that. But again, those are things that are not going to be talked about with most people because they're scared to be authentic. They're scared to say, well, yeah, this is how I showed up in past relationships. I understand this is my behavior. I understand these are things that I was working on and am working on and trying to be better. So again, my point with everything I'm saying, I'll let you come back in, is that the issue with the monogamous culture that we're in is it's hard for people to be authentic and be real and be organic when they're interacting with people. They tend to hold back certain parts of themselves to put their best foot forward because they don't want to be judged or rejected. We've got a really, really heavy rejection complex inside of monogamous culture because, again, the stakes are so high. You've got to find this one person. It's got to be the one. And if you don't find the one, then you're just kind of out there with either somebody you don't really like or you end up being by yourself. There's a lot of pressure for people to, figure that out.
That was such an amazing answer. Wow. I just want to give another example, though, before we move on to question two. So I had a client who, she was a university student. Her dark masculine man was also a university student. And he actually did tell her the truth from the beginning. He told her that they're basically friends with benefits, and he's not looking to be in a committed relationship. And he's focused on his studies and his, his career growth and whatnot. He told her that. And she still said to me that she felt he love bombed her because he was very, very, very affectionate. So he's a type of man that loves to hug, loves to cuddle, very touchy-feely. He was also really good with words, very romantic. And so even though he said friends with benefits, she said that because he was so affectionate, that led her to believe that he actually does want to commit to her, even though he clearly stated he does not. So she still feels that it's his fault that she became so addicted to him. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. And so, we talked about the little girl being inside some of these women, just like you see the little boy inside some of these men. So that's an example of her little girl. It's also an example of her not really being empowered, not being empowered sexually, and not being a free woman, and not really fully being inside of her elevated feminine. So here's the situation. Um, like, I'll speak for me personally. When I'm in a relationship or I'm connecting with a woman, I'm not holding anything back. Okay. I want to be fully connected to that person while we're spending our time together. Right. So what I'll often do is I'll often hold hands out the gate. I'll often express how I actually feel in the moment. I'm not going to hold back things like I love you, or I think you look beautiful, or I think you're an amazing woman, just because it's quote unquote too soon. Again, monogamous dating culture. You got to hold those things back because saying that too soon is a red flag. Right. So I show up authentically in terms of how I feel from day one. If I'm going to date you or go on a date with you, I already like you on some level. I've already feel some kind of connection. I'm not dating you to figure out who you are. We're not starting from scratch. Like, it's not like a blind date situation. No, if I'm dating you, if I'm taking you out, if I'm going to spend time with you, like take away time from another partner or person or take away my precious time, I already know I like you. So the issue with her is that she's not in her power. That's how you're supposed to show up in a relationship or in a connection. I don't care if it's a one off or if you guys have just been together for a few weeks. You need to bring everything that the connection is calling for, which is for you to be authentic. Do you have feelings for this person? Do you want to connect with them powerfully and passionately? If you do, why are you holding that back? And the issue with her, more than likely, is that she just hasn't allowed herself to be that way in the past in other relationships. So it's a new thing for her. So she got caught up in, again, the dating culture of monogamy, where you hold back those things and only the husband or the wife or the long-term boyfriend or girlfriend shows up in that particular kind of way. That's not the way life works. The way life works is we have strong feelings for people right away, very soon. We have strong attractions for them very soon. We want to be intimate. We want to have great communication. We want our time together to be passionate. And so when they feel empowered in themselves and they feel authentic in themselves, they show up that way from day one. You know what I'm saying? They're not love bombing or doing extra. That's who they actually are. They make love passionately. Their intimacy is powerful. All these things show up very powerfully from day one. It's not love bomb. It's being called, or what it's called is being authentic out the gate. And so again, to me, I blame the culture of monogamy. I blame people not being fully in their power. They're holding back parts of their sexuality or parts of their desires or whatever, trying to, show this person a particular side of them, those types of things. That stuff is toxic. No, he said what it was about. He said, look, this is the rules of our engagement. I'm not going to be in a long-term committed partnership with you. But at the same time, for her to assume he's going to hold back who he is whenever he interacts with her, to me, is crazy and ludicrous. Why would a man, why would a woman, for that matter, hold back how she feels or hold back how he feels when you're interacting authentically with somebody? You should never do that. So that's what I think the issue is. Again, it's the culture that we live in, and monogamy kind of demands that you deal with certain people who were very close and committed situations one way, and then other people another way. It's this whole hierarchy of how we judge people and how we judge connections and judge relationships is, to me, is very toxic. No, you can have a beautiful, powerful, committed connection with somebody. And it can be a one night thing. It could be the most beautiful and an amazing thing you've ever experienced before in your whole life, and then never ever revisit it. Like, that's possible. And it could be all the love, all the intensity, all the passion, everything can be there. That's the way life should be. It should be like we have these amazing connections and we're never holding back. And I just feel like for her to judge him in that way, it just shows where she actually is, because he told her up front what it was.
Wow. Okay. Rakim, a lot of women say to me that their dark masculine man, their avoidant man, is the only man who arouses them sexually, and that all other men on planet Earth are boring in comparison to him. So my question is, how can women open sexually to other men besides their dark masculine men when they genuinely find other men to be boring?
Okay. So again, this is partly a cultural issue. One of the issues with our culture, again, monogamous culture, is that when you find somebody you're really into, it's like you really want to hold on to that person. Like, it's so hard for us in this culture to find somebody we're powerfully and passionately into and super attracted to and have some type of personality, compatibility and all those things, right? And it's because of the way the culture is. So what happens is you don't end up really connecting with a lot of people. So when you find that person, you tend to get really possessive and really siloed and focused on an individual, right? Now, let's say that it's true that this person that, she found, her dark masculine man, is the only person that she wants to be with and probably the most powerful connection she's had in a long time. Yeah, that might be true. But again, that's not how life really works. We can't eat at the five-star steakhouse every single night, every single meal. Like, it's greed at some point. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, there's going to be men that you come in contact with who are powerful and just show up incredibly on all levels, sexually, et cetera, et cetera. And that's true. It doesn't mean that every single connection you have has to match that. That is ridiculous. So what happens is when women are not open and they're not sexually empowered, they actually have these unrealistic expectations about what they're supposed to experience when it comes to other connections. So they find this one connection and now they want to hold on to it for dear life because it's the best thing they've ever had in their whole life. Yeah, we get that. But it doesn't mean the connections are trash. Yeah, so you have to, like, to me, for women, they really need to get into a thing where they're finding their power by connecting with different types of men and appreciating different types of connections, sexual and otherwise. And so failure to do that leaves you in a vulnerable space to the point where when you find a powerful connection, you don't even know how to act. It becomes an addiction for you. And that's because you're not in your power. You're not in your sexual power. This man completely and totally owns you, owns all the real estate in your mind. You're thinking about him 24/7 because you just haven't allowed yourself to be sexually free and sexually powerful and have a variety of experiences. Generally, women who are in their sexual power are not going to be strung out on a man like that. They might desire him more than the others. They might want to be with him, but they're not going to, they're not going to put themselves in a position where they're not having any other kind of sexual connections. No, they still have a lot of sexual connections. Do they have their favorite? Yes. Do we all have our favorite? Yes. We have our favorite everything, our favorite car, our favorite restaurant, our favorite food, our favorite, all these things, favorite friend, everything. Are we going to be with that person every day? No. Are we going to have our favorite thing every day? No. So I get what they're saying. That's the whole monogamous culture romance thing. Oh, I found my Prince Charming, my knight in shining armor. I'm going to ride off of the sunset with him. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be him because no other man showed up this powerfully for me in the past, right? But it's fantasy. It's not real. And that's why this fantasy is what allows, like, true narcissistic men, for example, and women are like this too, but true narcissistic men to be able to prey on women because you believe in something that's not really, it's not really the standard experience for a majority of people in the world. Nobody is, they always say if something glitters, it's not always gold. Some things that are being said are just too good to be true. You have to be practical. If somebody is constantly giving you gifts and saying words of affirmation and, like, all the time, like, that's a red flag. What are you doing? Back up a little bit. Let's just be the authentic selves. Let's get to know each other on a deeper level. Let's broaden this thing out a bit. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? Let's go fishing. Let's go to the movies. Let's read books. Let's talk about intellectual things. Let's talk about, the kind of work you're doing on yourself. Let's talk about your faults. Let's talk about, like, let's connect on a deeper level. Like, let's get away from this extreme fantasy romance. That's the issue is people have bought into the fantasy of monogamous culture, and it's setting these women up, and men too, because I know women who do the same exact thing. I know women they've told me this. They say they can morph and be exactly what the man needs, and they do that. They do that sexually. They show up for him, in terms of nurturing him and all these things. But it's not who they really are, and they can't sustain it. They never sustain it. And after a while, they're tired of being with this guy because they can't sustain it. And he does the same thing the women did that you described earlier. He starts complaining, like, you used to do this, you used to do that, or he starts to mistreat her because he thinks that maybe she's cheating or whatever it is. But no, she can't sustain it. She did that same behavior. She morphed to become exactly what he wanted, and then now she can't sustain it. And you hear a lot of women say that, like, I lost myself in marriage. Well, why'd you lose yourself? Because you became what he wanted. You became what you thought he needed. You allowed yourself, you voluntarily gave up who you are as an individual, as an autonomous being, to become what he wants, become his fantasy. That is a red flag. I mean, that is a toxic behavior pattern. No, you got to show up with as who you are. Who are you as an authentic being? Who are you in relationships? Be that person. You see what I'm saying? And that's what a lot of women are having an issue with. They're like, I just can't, I'm not happy anymore. It's like, well, look, you never showed up as your authentic self. You tried to be the fantasy for this man. And yeah, so it's easy for you to divorce. It's easy for you to leave the situation, especially if he's not a dark masculine or not a womb choice, or even if he is, if he's not giving you the intimacy you're looking for, the sensual connection you're looking for. It's easy to walk out because you morphed yourself into this being to be what he wanted, and you completely and totally lost yourself. So it's a cultural thing, and again, it's not that you have to be stuck in the culture. My advice to women and men is like, show up authentically, be yourself. Because when you show up authentically and you show who you really are and what you're really about, and you speak on that, then you're going to attract people who are your match. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the only way to attract authentic people. When individuals come in contact with folks and they're in relationships, etc., and it never works out because it's not quite a match, it's because you're not being authentic. You got to understand the laws of metaphysics. The laws of metaphysics are you only attract who and what you are. So if you are an inauthentic person, meaning you're not showing up the way you as who you really are as a person, you're going to attract people who treat you that way and who also don't show up as who they are, who are lying and deceptive, et cetera, et cetera. Why? Because you're doing the same thing. You're deceiving this person. You know what I'm saying? You have to be you. If you're faking who you are, you're going to attract fake people. That's the laws of the universe. That's how it works. So it's not that people changed up. It's not that you outgrew the person. No, you didn't show up authentically to begin with. And now that you're beginning to be more authentic because you can't fake it anymore, now you see that this person's not really somebody you're into like that. And I see this happen a lot with both men and women in relationships over and over again.
Wow. This is a follow-up to question two, Rakim, because I've had quite a number of clients who did, allow themselves to date other men and have sex with other men, and this commonly happens. They then will complain to me that, okay, I had sex with him and he was lame, he was terrible, he didn't know what he was doing. Like, I didn't feel any pleasure, I didn't orgasm with him. Like, what the hell? Like, like they don't find any enjoyment with other men. Even when they go ahead and have the sex, they're like, the sex was crap. So what advice do you have for that, Rakim?
Yeah, again, these are women who they're comparing everybody to their dark masculine, right?
Mhm.
So if the other man doesn't have sex with them the exact same way the dark masculine does or close, then it's garbage. Also, they're not willing to be patient with these men or not willing to communicate authentically and say, hey, here's what I like. See, what happens is the way to look at dating people and a variety of people, over the course of your lifetime
Mhm.
is everybody has a particular specialty, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, we on the last podcast that we talked, I indicated to you that the dark masculines are not really great communicators in general, right?
Mhm.
But another man that this woman is dating might be a really great communicator and also a great communicator during sex, or he might be great at certain aspects of sensuality. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And so, like, these women, again, they're not being authentic. We have these things we call the progressive love tenets. I know you've heard of, you know about that. But one of the tenets is what we say, no cop outs, meaning there's no copping out of life. What does that mean? That means, like, you can be in a situation physically but not be invested mentally or emotionally. So yeah, she went on a date with this other guy. Yes, she had sex with the other guy, but she wasn't invested emotionally or mentally, meaning she didn't do all the things that she could do to really try to make it the best that experience that she could have it. So there's no communication, like, hey, why don't you try this or take your time and do that, or let's give the situation a little bit of time to possibly improve and get better. And then, like I said, also, these women need to learn to appreciate more than just one type of intimate connection. There's other types of intimate connections. Like I was saying on the last podcast, like, women need to learn to appreciate platonic connections with men because those are very powerful and they're very supportive. and they can almost be, semi pleasurable in a lot of ways, like just to feel that safety and to feel that compassion and to feel somebody who really, loves you and is invested in you in a certain kind of way. But what I'm saying is, like, women need to learn to appreciate all these different types of connections with men and not just be siloed on this one kind of connection. It's got to be a dark masculine. It's got to be a wound choice. It's got to be pretty much the best sex I've ever had in my life. Otherwise, it's garbage. No, that's not how it works. Find other areas of connection that are also beautiful, that are also supportive. It's not just one thing. And let me tell you this. If this woman had her dark masculine 24/7, guess what? Eventually she would get tired of that. And she'd be looking for a different type of intimate connection, somebody who's more, compassionate or whatever it might be. So it's really about learning to be the complete you, to be the complete self, and not get siloed in these one specific types of experiences.
I know what you're saying is so true because what I say to my clients is that, when I was a sex worker, that's when I learned that I could enjoy sex with any man. It doesn't matter what he looks like, it doesn't matter his age, it doesn't matter his race, it doesn't matter if he's good looking or ugly. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I found a way to enjoy sex with my clients. I found a way because I allowed myself to have that experience. So, what I say to women is that the more sexually empowered you are, the more orgasmic you are, because a lot of these women are only having clitoral orgasms. They've never had a vaginal orgasm. But the more that you allow yourself to be orgasmic and to really care about men, and to be willing to meet them where they're at and have compassion, you can have beautiful sexual experiences with any man, with literally any man, if you allow yourself to. I know that's hard for women to hear, but I know that this is true because I've lived it. Does that make sense to you, Raquel?
That's a great. I love that example. That's true. If a woman loves men, like men, like the masculine presence and the masculine essence and those types of things, then yeah, she's going to be attracted to a lot of different kind of men. She's going to be able to enjoy a lot of different kind of men. One of the issues with this, and this is for the dark masculine example you gave earlier, is that a lot of women don't really have a love and appreciation for men in general, or the masculine. And the same thing with men when it comes to women. A lot of men don't really love women, don't love feminine energy, right? So what happens with these women is you don't really love men, but there's certain, aspects of the masculine that you do like. And they tend to be the dark masculines that we're talking about. And so what happens is you have this super strong attraction for this one type of man, this one expression of the masculine, and you get all into that, but you don't really love him, or you don't really love the masculine like that. You just, like, you have this weird, because of early childhood trauma and other things that happen, you have this kind of weird, codependency and attachment to him, and it comes down in your behavior. Like when you have this kind of weird, possessiveness and this weird, pursuit, and I can only be with him and all this stuff, like that's a red flag. That says that you have some kind of childhood trauma you're working through, or some kind of early life trauma, or some kind of weird, attachment thing that comes from something early in your life. So when you have that, you don't have love for the masculine. You're working out your trauma with the masculine through this dark masculine man. And so that's why you can't love other men. Like for me, like a lot of people look at me and they're like, I love women. You know what I'm saying? Like the feminine is amazing. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see what the issue is. Like there's a lot of women I can date. You see what I'm saying? Like, the comedian Bill Burr, in one of his stand-up comedy routines, he said, men are wired to have a sensual connection with about 80% of the women in a room at any particular time. And I agree. You know what I'm saying? Like I could see myself connected with almost like most women. You see what I'm saying? Because I appreciate the feminine. You see what I'm saying? Like I appreciate women. Like I'm attracted to women. I like women. I love women. You see what I'm saying? Like, so this whole thing about like this is a difficult thing, you know what I'm saying? To find a woman or to have great experience with women. No, I don't have bad dating experiences. Even platonic ones. Like they're amazing to me. You know what I'm saying? Like what are we talking about? Like So like for the women who have a hard time with men, like you got to really look at, well, why don't I like men in general? Why is it
Mhm.
like these very specific men, a very specific characteristics? Is because you got some things to work out from a trauma perspective. So that insight that you gave about, when you were doing your particular work,
Mhm.
that's powerful. You were working through a lot of the traumas that you dealt with from the masculine at an early age, and you were able to get through a lot of stuff, and you were able to find beauty and find pleasure and find great connection. Like I
Mhm.
remember you talking to me about some of those connections. Like you like really you liked a lot of these guys. Like they were really cool, or they had a particular perspective that you liked, or whatever. You see what I'm saying? And you also found, and maybe you can talk on this a little bit. You also found that each of these men had a different kind of like specialty. Like some were
Mhm.
really good when it came to oral, or some were really good when it came to this. And
Mhm.
you were able to find some enjoyment, different kind of enjoyment in the dark masculine, but find enjoyment with these men. So maybe you could even speak to that.
Absolutely. I wasn't planning to, but yeah, I mean, I I didn't know that I could orgasm from a man massaging my toes
Mm,
or sucking on my toes until I did sex work,
yeah.
you know.
And
Um,
that's what I mean, like finding your power as a woman. Like you went on that journey.
mhm.
And now the whole world's open up to you. You know what I'm saying? Now you have about 10 or 15 different ways you can orgasm, where before it was one or none. You see what I'm saying? But this clitoral. So it's like
Yep,
now your appreciation of the masculine has broadened.
totally.
Now you don't have this narrow view of what men are, or who they can be, or how they can show up. It's way more broad. So if you needed to, you would be able to connect with a variety of men. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? And you would be able to find pleasure and whatever. I'm not saying that you would want to be with them forever or whatever, but you would be able to appreciate who they are as men and show up and enjoy that connection.
Absolutely. So we got to continue on because I have a lot of questions to go through.
Okay.
When a lot of my clients finally agree to date other men, and even just that process of getting them to that point is so super hard because monogamy is like built into their programming. But when they do date other men, a lot of these women, they feel that it's wrong or that they're cheating on their dark masculine man, and they feel like they should confess to him. They should tell him what they're doing. And on top of that, there's also this fear that if he were to find out that they're dating other men, that he will devalue them or he'll reject them. In some cases, he may even get violent. I've had one or two clients where when the dark masculine man found out that they had sex with another man, he got violent. And so I know I've asked you about this before, but I just want you to speak on it again. Like, how can women feel empowered about dating multiple men?
Yeah, well, that's a great question in terms of how women can feel empowered to date multiple men. First of all, let's understand this. The examples you're giving me, these women are not in marriages with the dark masculine. They're not in long term.
Actually, some of my clients are married to their dark masculine. A few are. Most aren't. Most are not.
Okay, well, let's deal with the ones who aren't.
Hmm.
So, because that's kind of the easiest. So, the one, if you're not in a long term committed marriage with your dark masculine, then you're single. Period. Point blank. Yeah. Based on the rules of monogamy, right? Like when we look at marriages and divorces, when we look at marriages, we're not counting boyfriend girlfriend relationships. We're not talking about I'm having sex with this person over here consistently. That doesn't count. What counts in our culture, monogamous culture, is if you're married and have a marriage license and had a ceremony, you're in a committed relationship. If not, you're single. You're not married. Okay. So that's number one. Number two is if you're not married or you're not in a committed situation with agreements, then there should be no way that you are not dating other people. Now, again, if that's what you want to do, it's fine, but there's an issue with that because the truth of the matter is these women want to marry the dark masculine.
Yes.
Bottom line. So you want to be married, but what you're doing is you're trying to employ a strategy where you're going to put all your eggs in one basket and try to get this particular man to marry you. That's not a smart strategy. Now,
Mm.
if you all are dating, or you're in an actual relationship and it's committed, and the communication's good, and there's agreements and stuff like that, and you want to take that risk, then fine. Or you're engaged, then fine. You see what I'm saying? But most of the scenarios you told me about, that's not the case. These
Mm.
women have no commitment. There's no engagement. There's no pending marriage. So you're
Mm.
single. So for you to only invest in one person and not focus on yourself, not focus on your own growth, your own pleasure, right? Not focus on you becoming empowered essentially, that to me is a mistake. Okay. In terms of, the women communicating to their dark masculine man about their other exploits, why would you do that? I'm saying, like, there's no reason to talk to him about anything you're doing because you all don't have that kind of relationship. Again, if you are in a committed relationship, even if you're not married, let's say it's a committed relationship, communication is great. You guys have an upward trajectory towards marriage and long-term, exclusive commitment. If that's the case, then yes, you would let him know if you had attractions or let him know if you wanted to date somebody or whatever, then fine. Because that's you all's agreement and he should be doing the same thing with you. Okay. But if that's not the case, there's absolutely no reason to do that. First of all, there's only certain types of men who are really able to handle a woman sharing, the details of her sensual connections.
Mm.
Most men in the monogamous culture, they can't handle it. Why? Because monogamy breeds jealousy, possessiveness, resentment, all that kind of stuff. It's very toxic. Like in monogamous culture, people think they own your sexuality. They believe that to the point where they get offended if you even express attraction to somebody else. You see what I'm saying? So that's most people haven't worked on themselves enough to be okay hearing that. Okay, especially in a dark masculine, a dark feminine situation where the passion and the sensual connection is very strong. I just wouldn't recommend it. You all don't have that agreement. You see what I'm saying? Now, to answer your other question about, but the woman feels conflicted. She
Mm.
feels like she's cheating on her dark masculine.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, that's a result of monogamous culture. It's toxic.
Mm.
Why do you feel like you're doing something that's not an agreement between you all? You're not. You're not doing anything that is, disrespecting him or the relationship. You see what I'm saying? You're living your life in the same way he's living your life. I'll give you an example because you've told me this before too. Most of these dark masculine men, again, we're talking about the unmarried scenarios, right? They're all dating other women.
Absolutely. Yes. A
Every
hundred
single
percent.
one of them is with
Yes.
other women.
Yes.
But for a woman to feel like she's somehow disrespecting him or the relationship or quote unquote cheating or whatever, like that is completely bananas.
Mm.
And again, it comes from our culture because monogamous culture makes women feel like they have to be a certain way to be considered wife material. And
Yeah.
that's not true. No, be your authentic self and you will find a man who appreciates you and loves you for who you are. But if you keep faking it, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of women try to feign exclusivity to get the man to like them more than the other women he's with.
Mm.
That's to me is a losing strategy.
Mm.
Losing strategy.
Wow.
I'm not sure if I answered all those questions, but
Yeah, you did. You've blown every question out of the ballpark. I'm just like, I'm amazed, Rakim. The next question is, what do dark masculine man, warrior man, womb choice man actually value in women? And as a follow-up, what would cause a dark masculine man to feel more attracted to a woman who is anxiously attached to him?
well, let me start with the first question. What
What
is
do they value? What do you actually value in women? Because a lot of women are confused about like, what does he want? I don't know what he wants.
so that's actually a loaded question. So
Okay.
what those women are really saying, can I tell you what they're really saying? What,
Okay.
what those women are really saying is, what can I do and provide to him that'll get him to commit to me long term and marry me?
Correct. Correct.
Right. So, um, the issue with that is, um, again, that leads you down that path where where a lot of women are going to give him something that's not authentic to her, and she's going to resent it later. But let's talk about what a lot of these men are looking for. They're
Okay.
looking for because a lot of the dark masculine men are wounded men.
Yeah.
Okay, not all of them, but a lot of them are. So they're looking for mothering.
Mm.
Okay, they're looking for somebody who's going to take care of them, who's not going to castigate them, not going to scold them, not going to make them feel like they're doing the wrong thing. Like, so like one thing a lot of women can do is you cannot be going back and forth with your dark masculine, arguing, begging, complaining like that. he's going to be drawn to that kind of toxicity, but not in a way it's going to cause him to marry you. It's like an addiction he has. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, so he because he didn't receive what he needed from the feminine as a child, because it was a toxic situation for him, he's going to be drawn to toxicity in women. The issue is he's not going to love those women. He's not going to commit to them in most cases because he's mad at his mother. He's mad at the feminine.
Mhm.
So, but that is that what he's looking for? Yes, he's looking for, nurture me, mother me, give me my way, all that kind of stuff. So if you're a woman with a dark masculine and you want him to spend more time with you, and you want him to be around you more, I advise you don't do the toxic stuff. The
Mhm.
arguing, the back and forth, the machine gun texting, the paragraphs and paragraphs of texting. Like, I would shy away from all that. I would let him do his thing, and you always be there available to him and supportive of him and that kind of stuff. If you do that, if you are in an inviting space for him, he's going to begin to have more trust in you. Now, again, he's going to test you. He's going to do things that are quote unquote toxic or not, really responsible or mature as a man. He's going to do that, right? But what'll happen is he's going to have more faith and confidence in you. He's going to be more connected to you because you're the one woman out of all the women out here who don't really castigate him or make him feel like that little boy who got in trouble when he was 6. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So he's going to come to you. He's going to confide in you more. He's going to want to do more things with you and be around you more. And then when it's time for him to do his growth work, he's going to be open to some of your suggestions. Like, he's going to come to you. These men will come to you and they're going to say to you, like, I need support, or I need help, or I want to be better as a man. They're going to come to you and say that, but they're only going to say it to women who are non-threatening, who are non-toxic with them.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so when he comes to you with that, that's the opportunity for you as a woman to go through healing with him. And then if you end up doing that with him, then he's going to be your man for life. Okay,
Mhm.
but it's those are different stages. The first stage is you can't be the toxic trigger that he's used to from childhood. That's number one. Number two is you have to be open and inviting to him when he does want to come around or does want to communicate. Be open and inviting. Like accept him for who he is and where he is in his spiritual growth and development. And then third, when he asks you for support or asks you for help or says he wants to be better or show up better, that's when you do a journey with him to growth, and he's going to be with you forever. That's the formula that you should tell your women. Forget the second question.
You answered it all. You answered it. What would cause him to feel more attracted? You answered it,
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely,
the anxious attachment is what leads to the toxic behavior in the woman in the first place. So if she's not being crazy and psychotic, then and spamming him and all of that, then that goes a long way.
yes,
Goes a long way. So the next question is more of a scenario. So this is a common scenario with many, many women where they haven't heard from their dark masculine man for whatever amount of time, a week, 2 weeks, a month, 3 months. And she's at the point where she's like, if I don't hear from him, if I don't get in contact with him, like I feel like I'm gonna die. I feel like I'm gonna lose my mind. And then she will say, well, I've done all the self-care, I've done all the self-focus, I've done all the things, and I need to hear from this man or I'm going to die. What is your recommendation for women when they're in that state?
yeah. It's a great question. When women want to hear from their dark masculine and they want to hear from him really bad and they haven't heard from him, I suggest they go internal with it. So again, my background, I believe in a metaphysical, kind of basis for reality. If I want somebody to call me, then I just think about them in a particular way. If I want to run into them at the store, I just think about them and focus on them in a very particular way. Like, you don't. Again, this is the feminine approach to manifesting your life, and these arts are very esoteric and not easy to understand. And that's what the feminine always has been. The feminine is mysterious. It's hard to understand how to show up as a woman in your feminine. Again, what's talked about a lot is the superficial stuff. Wear this, dress this way, walk this way, like all the superficial stuff, and that's fine too. But there's no real. That's not where the foundation of the power is in terms of feminine energy. So if as a woman you want your dark masculine to contact you, then make yourself feel good, You know what I'm saying? Get your favorite food or run yourself a bath, whatever it might be. And you think about your dark masculine in a positive way. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a sincere desire to see him. It is a sincere desire to hear from him. And you're visualizing that and you're feeling that inside your body as a woman. And when you do that, it's going to attract him to you. I'll give you an example. Like when I would teach women, when it comes to sensual connection, and they say, well, yeah, I want my man to do this and do that. I said, well, here's how you get him to do that while you're having your sexual connection with him. Okay. You think about it in a particular way. Like you see him touching you in a particular way. You see him, going down on you in particular, whatever it might be. And you'll notice like after a few minutes of you doing that, he'll end up doing that. You don't have to say it. Now you can if you want. I support open communication during sensuality and all that kind of stuff. But you don't have to do it that way. That's one way to communicate, or one way to manifest reality, or one way to affect your environment. That's the masculine way to do it, and that's fine. But as a woman, you don't have to do that. You can use the feminine, pull, the feminine power, and that's going to get him to show up in a very particular way for you as well. So the reason why I suggest that is because in the case you're describing, like the communication's bad between a man and woman. They're already not speaking, or he's turned off or whatever. So you can't use the masculine communication methods or masculine methods anymore because it'll push him further away. It's too toxic. Yeah. It's not bringing you all together. So now you're forced to use the feminine to bring him to you. And this is one more thing I want to say about this is the lesson that a lot of women are learning by attracting the dark masculine into their life. From a metaphysical perspective, what's happened is you're learning and being called to tap into your power as a woman. What's happening, your spirit is saying, look, you need to go deeper when it comes to your feminine energy and your feminine abilities and your power as a woman. And the only way I'm going to be able to get you to do that is by having you attached and toxically connected to a man that you're super, super, super into, but you're not going to be able to use the masculine methods to influence the relationship or influence him. So what a lot of women are not aware of is that you're being called to walk a feminine empowerment path. The unfortunate part about that is most people out there, most coaches and therapists, they don't understand that at all. And so the advice that they're giving these women is going to be something that's not going to help them actually attract this man to them. They're not understanding the bigger picture of what's happening. You're not just with this man because you're attracted to him. You know what I'm saying? You didn't call him into your life this lifetime because of just some random attraction. No, you're being called to come into your power as a woman. And so if you don't understand that, if you don't realize that, then you're on this path to peril. But that's what's happening. You're being called, let me utilize feminine energy. Let me master my own feminine energy to bring to me what I desire as a woman. And the beautiful thing about that is, yes, it's going to work on this man, but guess what's going to work on? It's going to work on every other area of your life. It's going to work on finances. It's going to work on, your family situations, and work on all types of stuff. Now you have access to feminine power. But before you did not. Yeah. All you thought you were just, at the whim of the people around you and your environment. And that's not true. Like women need to learn to tap into their feminine energy. But again, it's a science, and most women are not really aware of the science of it. Some are. There are women who understand it out there, but very, very few and far between.
I love what you just shared about the thoughts, because a lot of times when a woman is spiraling or having a panic attack because she's not hearing from her dark masculine man, the thoughts that she's thinking are not actually conducive towards him initiating contact with her. She's thinking that, oh, he doesn't want me, or he doesn't like me, or he hates me, or he's angry at me, or maybe he's with another woman and she fucks him better than me. And like she's if you actually get her to write down what her thoughts are, they would all be thoughts of what I call disappointment, rejection, abandonment, and powerlessness. The powerlessness is where I don't believe that there's anything I can do metaphysically as a woman to draw him to me. I don't believe I even have that power. And I believe he doesn't want me, but I can't stop thinking about him. So like everything that she's thinking and feeling is perpetuating the reality that she says she doesn't want to keep experiencing.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And so I know a lot of those women come to you and they say, hey, I am thinking about him. So I heard what Rakim said on the podcast. I am thinking about him. I think about him all the time. And then you come back and say, you're not thinking about him in the right way. You have a lot of fear-based thoughts.
Oh,
You have a lot of thoughts of that lack power and lack confidence in yourself. You have a lot of thoughts that paint him in a negative light. Like you actually think badly about this man, and you expect to have the power to attract him into your life. You don't even love him like that. You don't even respect him like that. You think he's, a bad communicator and doing things intentionally to hurt you and all this stuff. But you think you're going to attract him into your life? That's just not how it works. So again, you're right on point. That when the women who come back to you and say, "Yeah, I think about him," he's still not calling me because you're in your toxic thoughts around this man. You see what I'm saying? You're claiming to love him and claiming to want this person around you, but you have all these toxic thoughts about him and all these fear-based thoughts.
yeah.
That's not how you attract reality. Yeah, that's great.
My next question, and I don't know how you're going to feel about this one because you're very into polyamory and open relating. But if a woman really does want the dark masculine man to be sexually exclusive to her, how can she bring about that reality?
Well, so if the woman wants the dark masculine man to be exclusive with her, the way she does that is how I described earlier, right? Stage one, you love him and accept him for who he is. Stop trying to force him or manipulate him or railroad him into behavior that feels good to you. Okay, that's step one. Step two is you don't do the toxic stuff, right? Like you're not that toxic woman. You're an elevated woman. You're operating on a higher consciousness. You're not like the other women out here in society. Most women are going to be toxic towards him. They're going to trigger those childhood traumas in their behavior and their accusations and all that kind of stuff. So step two is don't be toxic. Don't trigger any of that toxic stuff. Okay. And then step three, like I told you, this is going to happen. Step three is he's going to come to you and ask for your support. He's going to want you to support him in growing and being better as a man. And when he does that and you support him in that and you all grow together, then he's going to be more and more and more connected to you. And that's how you're going to be able to actually, be in a exclusive type situation with him. Right. I'm not guaranteeing that, but I'm saying that's the path to make that happen. It depends on how the woman shows up and what she actually does and says. Because a lot of women will claim like, yeah, I didn't do anything toxic. And then you find out later she called him, some kind of bad thing on text or whatever. So I'm just saying, like, if you actually follow those steps, that's how you get him to show up in a more committed, exclusive, and prioritize you as the number one woman in his life, period.
I want to add a little something to that. I'll talk about us for a second. So, I totally accept you as a non-monogamous man. However, I did ask you, when you come to Toronto to visit me, for 4 days, 5 days a week, however long, I asked if you would be exclusive to me during that time period that you're here in Toronto, and you agreed to that. And so, like, it doesn't have to, what I want to say to the women listening is you don't have to ask him for like 100% exclusivity because that just might not even make any sense, especially if you're long distance like we are. But you can ask him for temporary exclusivity, and he may very well say yes to that. So, you want to say something about that, Rakim?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what you just stated about, me being exclusive and focused and present, with you while I'm there, absolutely. And I've been exclusive with women before. Like I was successfully exclusive for 12 years of my first marriage. In other relationships, I've been exclusive for extended periods of time, up to a year. I've been exclusive with women. Even when I was open relating, I've been exclusive inside that time period for, a year. And I've done it, I've done it for months. So it's not like a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Like if I care about the woman and we agree that that's what we're going to do, then I'm fine doing it. It's not a big deal. You see what I'm saying? Like, will I be exclusive for life? I'm open to that. If the connection is the right connection and all that kind of stuff, and the stage of my life and stuff like that, sure. But the point is like, when you have a real connection with a guy, yeah, he's going to be able, he'll be willing to do those things for you and with you. It's not that big a deal. It's a big deal when you're toxic towards him. And no one wants to be in a situation like that, an exclusive monogamous situation, and the person doesn't even really love me like that. They don't accept me like that. They're constantly, knocking me down or criticizing me or castigating me for my behavior or what I'm not doing or whatever. Like nobody wants to be in a situation where that's the only person you're dealing with. It's horrible. It doesn't feel good. It's like I said, it's toxic, it's traumatizing, it's abusive. And so that's the difference. But yeah, I feel like if a woman wants that with a dark masculine, it's 100% possible.
Totally. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk a bit about money here. So, what if a woman is dealing with a dark masculine man who's always financially broke and she's tired of spending her money on him? How can she get him to become good at making money? Or how can she feel really good about spending money on him despite the fact that he's always broke?
Yeah, in terms of getting him to make money, again, that goes back to the three steps I talked about. So because that's a healing thing, right? So he's got a thing in his consciousness about not having money or not having a wealth consciousness or something around poverty or lack or something like that. So that requires some work. That requires some growth. He's She's not going to be able to get him to do that unless she's walking that journey with him and she shows up as a caring, loving person in his life. Okay. That's
Mhm.
number one in terms of that, like getting him to actually find a path where he's making his own money and feeling good about that. Okay. So that's how she does that. Step one, two, and three. In terms of her not feeling bad about paying for everything, I mean, again, a lot of women are having a hard time with it. I just released a video today on this, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying, about where we are in relationships. This is not the 1930s or
Mhm.
the 1940s where women weren't allowed to have bank accounts
Yeah.
and could not work and really couldn't really have money like that. And that's so therefore they had to depend on other things. They had to depend on a man for resources.
Yeah.
That's not the way it is today. The way it is today is, what I called it is attraction points, meaning there's certain points of attraction that people are going to have with each other. So the same way a lot of women look at men and be like, what's attractive to me about him is, yeah, how he looks and all that, but also that he makes money
Mm.
or has his stuff together like that. A lot of women are attracted to that because that symbolizes his ability to dominate, the physical world around him and and
Mhm.
and withdraw resources from that world. Like that's a masculine skill to be able to do that, right?
Mhm.
So women are attracted to that. But guess what? Men are attracted to women who have their stuff together like that too. Like a lot of men look at women and say, "Yeah, she's got her stuff together. Like that's attractive. I like a go getter. I
Mhm.
like a woman who understands how to hustle, who can utilize her either masculine or feminine energy to make money. Like
Mhm.
that. A lot of men are drawn to that.
Yeah.
So women have to, again, it's the toxicity of monogamous culture where we're still stuck in the fantasy. You're the princess. You've got no job, no nothing, no money, and the prince got to come save you, and that's how you live happily ever after. That's just not reality. The reality is we're all autonomous human beings on the planet. We've all got the ability to live amazing lives, to make money, to have love, to have romance, all these things, and we don't have to fit into a particular, traditional, setup to live our best lives.
Mhm.
So, yes, you're attracted to this man, this dark masculine man, for his whatever sexual prowess.
Mhm.
Guess what? He's attracted to you because you got your hustle going. Okay, that's all there is to it. Welcome to the mature real world, right? That women were on one side that their whole lives. Again, they were finding men who had money and they had nothing, and that was accepted. Well, guess what? In the new world, it's going to be accepted that there's going to be men with no money, but they got some other kind of skill. And they're going to be attracted to women who have that hustle mentality or have their degrees or whatever. I'll give you an example of this. The first time I was exposed to this was when I worked in corporate America. Okay. So I worked for one of the biggest consulting firms in the world. Um, and most of my supervisors and managers were women. Okay. So that was a new thing for me.
Mhm.
So they were mostly women, and many of those women, they would have babies and stuff like that while they were working, and they would only take like 2 months maternity leave. And
Mhm.
guess what? That was my first time witnessing. This is back in the 90s. That was my first time witnessing men staying at home taking care of the children, and the woman as like the solid, unequivocal breadwinner in the family, right?
Yeah.
And the men were happy to play those roles and they were
Mhm.
and the be quiet is kept that they were better at being the stay-at-home parent than the wife was. So they embraced it, and it was an agreement. Like I saw multiple woman executives with that setup. They were the breadwinner, and the reason why is because the consulting company that I worked for, people made big money. Like once you got to a certain level, you made a lot of money, like $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, easy. So it didn't make sense for him to be working some job making 75 somewhere. So these men, they embraced the fact that their wives were brilliant, that they were hustlers and go-getters, still willing to do some traditional things like have a family and children. You see what I'm saying? Still, want to spend time with the family and do all these things, but not all the way traditional where it's like she has to stay home
Yeah.
even after she had her, their children. Like they weren't staying home for 9 months or 2 years. They wanted to get back into the workforce, you know what I'm saying, and do their career stuff and keep climbing. They were passionate and they were good at it. These women were talented, man. These
Yeah.
women had like amazing intellectual skills. Like they were
Yeah.
like type A personality, like really, really amazing women. So I could see why they were on their path. They were amazing. So I'm just saying, women you got to come into the new century, man. It's a new time. Like it's not, oh, I'm paying and that's a problem. No, that's not the way the world works anymore. That's from the 1950s. But I'm sorry, it's 2025, and you have to understand that the fact that you make money is for some men, not all men, but for some men is going to be an attractive thing to them, and they're going to want to like experience you in that. That's just facts.
So let's talk about the men who don't like that. Because I have clients also who they're with a dark masculine man, and they say to me that he refuses to let them spend money on him. Even when she clearly makes more money than him, he won't let him buy her. He won't let her buy him anything. He won't let her pay for anything. He won't let her take him on trips because he feels that that would be emasculating and that's like a man should not allow a woman to pay money for things when she's dating him or married to him. So how can a woman deal with that situation where like he's refusing to let her spend any money on him?
Well, first of all, if they were to end up being together, he would soften up on that position over time. So that's number one. Number two, again, he's affected by toxic monogamy as well. So there's certain men who believe that if they don't pay for everything, they're not a man.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like their whole concept of masculinity is around money and pain and being the provider. You see what I'm saying? So that's a part of the masculine, the monogamous culture. Look, if a man wants to do that, that's fine. I support it 100%. If you want to pay for everything, cool. Like I'm on board with it. I think it's great as a preference. But the issue is if you're tying your masculinity to you paying or not paying, that's an issue. You see what I'm saying? Like you're men are men, regardless of the money they make or, you know what I'm saying, if they pay for everything or not. That's not tied to masculine behavior. A woman making money, like that's so common. You see what I'm saying? Like that, it's just a thing. So again, I know a lot of men, their women make a lot of money and they'd be splitting bills. That's just like a normal household where you have two people working in corporate, for example. They're not caught up in all that crazy talk. This is like younger generation toxic monogamy kind of weirdness that we're talking about. You see what I'm saying? People who are actually married, where the husband and the wife both work, both make money, they're not confused about this stuff. They're not. There's no weirdness around it. Sometimes she's paying with her Amex. Sometimes he's playing with his Amex. You see what I'm saying? Like they don't really get into that weirdness. There's an immaturity and a lack of understanding about how the world works with that. You see what I'm saying? So a man who he insists that he pays for everything, that's his prerogative. If he's tying that to him being a man, that's an issue. And it's especially an issue. I'll tell you what, here's what's really going to be an issue is let's say these two get together into a committed situation and they have to live below their means because he's not allowing her to pay for stuff. That is completely like they could live in $1 million house, but because he won't let her contribute, they got to live in a $300,000 house. Like that's insanity to me. That's toxic. It's insane and it's abusive to her. What are you saying to her? You don't even love this woman because she's saying like, look, as a woman, I'm a complete human being who's not only just romantic and loving, but can go out here and make money and has a career path and all these things. And you're rejecting that part of me by not allowing me to spend any money. I'm insisting that I spend. He's not trying to take advantage of her. You see what I'm saying? She's saying I want to spend.
Mhm.
So that's to me, that's when it gets toxic. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm
What should
saying.
she
Eventually, it is going to.
say?
It's not
Mhm.
going to work out.
What should she like if the man just refuses, what can she say to him to get him to think differently?
Well, again, it's going to be a long-term thing. It's an educational thing. So over time, he's
Mhm.
going. First of all, he's not going to be able to sustain it.
Okay.
Like he's going to be looking at all. She's going to be stacking her money in the bank. It's not even smart financially as a man to spend all your money on everything. And your
Mhm.
woman makes more than you, and so she's just stacking and saving and investing all her money that's hers. Like it doesn't even make it. Like that's complete and total insanity. Any man doing that is just he's out of his mind. You see what I'm saying? But um, yeah, she just needs to work with him and talk with him. Over time, he'll soften his position and he'll open up to allowing her to spend and then finding something that's more balanced. Even if
Mhm.
it's 70-30, where he's spending 70s, like just something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's ridiculous. Usually what happens is life will change his mind. So let's say they
Mhm.
get together, they're in a committed relationship. Life is going to demand that she use her money. He's not going to be able to sustain it. She's not going to be able to sustain her lifestyle and the family lifestyle. It's just not going to happen unless he is rich or he's making a ton of money. Like if we're talking like he's making $700,000 a year and she's making 1.2 million, then yeah, they probably don't. They're not going to need her money like that from a life situation for the most part. But they're going to be living below the means they could be living. That's for darn sure.
Mhm. So the next question is, what should a woman do when she's been very verbally abusive and aggressive towards her dark masculine man in the past, and he no longer trusts her, and he no longer believes that she loves him? How can she regain his trust? How can she help him to feel that she actually does love him?
Well, she has to actually love him. I mean, I don't know how you can be verbally and emotionally abusive to somebody and actually love that person. I know people believe those two things exist, but they don't. If you're abusing somebody verbally, but then you come back and claim that you love this person, like what are we talking about? No, you don't love the person. You might be infatuated with them. You might want them to be in your life. You might want to be in a relationship with them. But if you're abusive to them, that's not love. So you got to stop being abusive, number one, and then you got to start loving the person. What is love? It's when you show up for the person, when you accept the person, when you respect the person. You know what I'm saying? When you're actually doing things for them, when you're not complaining and manipulative and cascading them and all that kind of crazy stuff. When you're not doing that and you're showing up for them. So she needs to do that. Stop the childish, toxic behavior and show up as a loving adult in this man's life. And then he'll see over time that you actually do love him. And she might also need to, at some point, when she's done this long enough, she might also need to talk about her past behavior. Like, yes, I used to treat you like this and yell at you and all these things. But just so you know, I've worked on myself. I've learned to love you and appreciate you for who you are. And, just want you to know that I'm not that woman anymore. I've actually grown out of that behavior. So that's what it would probably require, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that has been the path with us because I have been very verbally abusive to you in the past and very aggressive. And it's taken me a while to let go of those behaviors and that patterning and adopt a new way of engaging with you and speaking with you and treating you. Like it's been a process. It did not happen overnight. It's taken years. And but I can say that to all the women that if you're consistent, if you're consistent in communicating to him with respect and honor, and you're treasuring him, and you're really practicing TARA, trust, appreciation, respect, and acceptance with this man over 1, 2, 3, however many years, he's gonna start to soften, and he's gonna start to trust you again, and he's gonna show up in your life. I like you and I, we are living proof of that. Rob Hemseyku.
Yeah, and I want to say something to make sure your listeners understand. Just because a man is dealing with you, like relating with you or having intimacy with you or whatever, doesn't mean that he thinks you love him. You know what I'm saying? It's like we all go to jobs, right? We go to jobs because we want to make money and support ourselves. it's not, we don't necessarily believe that these companies care about us, right? We don't believe that if we were on hard times, that the company would give us a pay raise or support us in some kind of way with the extra funds that they have. No, we don't believe that. We don't believe that they care for us deeply and love us. But we still go there to work. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way it is in relationships. Like a lot of folks, they don't love each other, but they're still going to deal with each other. Men know if a woman loves him or not. You see what I'm saying? Like you can just tell, you can feel it. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that if she actually loves him, it means he's going to act right. But I'm just saying, like, men understand whether or not she loves him or not. You see what I'm saying? So don't mistake the fact that he's coming around or that you guys are still having sensuality and intimate connections or spending time that you think he thinks that you love him. No, the men understand. If you've been toxic with him, all those things, he pretty much knows that this is not love. It's something, but it's not love though. So just so your listeners understand that, because some people get confused that, oh well, she's spending time with me, it means she loves me. No.
Mhm.
Or he's spending time, it means he loves me. No. Or we've been together for 2 3 years. No, that's not what that means. People come together for all kinds of reasons. There's all kind of toxic things and codependency and things that they're working out or whatever. It's not necessarily automatically love. We need to understand that and get that through our heads.
I've definitely seen instances where the dark masculine man, after a certain point in time, he will refuse to have sex with a woman. So I had a client in that scenario where she kept telling me she wanted emotional intimacy, and then eventually he did become emotionally available to her, and he started answering all of her questions, and they were having great conversations and all of that, like almost every day. And but he was like, I don't want to have sex with you anymore. But there was two reasons why he said that. One, he told her he really wanted to focus on his business. He really wanted to grow his business in 2025 and he wanted to stay focused. And from his experience, every time that he had sex with her, she would get crazy, and she would then be a distraction to him. And so he was like, "We can be friends, we could talk, but I do not want to have sex with you." And she was devastated by that.
Yeah, and it sounds like he actually does want to have a intimate connection with her. Like, but he's saying the way she functions as a result of their connecting that way, it's too distracting. Like again, a lot of these women, and maybe some of your listeners know about this or not, but they get crazy, like where it interrupts the man's life. You see what I'm saying? Like he's trying to go to work, or he's trying to do this business, or he's trying to do whatever, and like they're interrupting that. So a lot of these men understand, like, look, she's with me primarily because of our sexual connection.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what's making her kind of go crazy. If I pull that back, then that's the craziness will dissipate. And a lot of times men get to a point in their life where they want peace. They're like, look, I really enjoy our connection. I enjoy a lot about, our relationship, all that, but I don't have time. You know what I'm saying? I don't have time or the mental or emotional or physical capacity to deal with all this back and forth nonsense. So, you know, like I said in the last podcast, we talked on, a lot of men find fulfillment in business or career or whatever, and they want to focus on that now. And they can only really be with women who align with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, the toxic stuff is fun and all that up to a point when you're younger. But you're talking about these men in their 30s and 40s and 50s, like people don't have time for that. Like a lot of stuff is really things that should have been left in your teenage years and 20s. But people are still doing it in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And it's just sometimes folks just grow out of it. Like I don't have time for it. So I understand what he's saying, but and it's a shame because he wants to still connect with her that way. You can tell.
So this is the final question. So we know that a lot of women are digmatized by their dark masculine man. They're hooked on his penis. And so women want to know, like, okay, how can I pussy whip him? How can I get him hooked on me? What's your answer to that, Kim?
Yeah, that's a great question. How can a woman get a man hooked on her from an intimate and sensual standpoint? Well, really, the easy answer to that is you need to study him and understand, what he likes, what he loves in terms of the sensual connection. And then as you study him, you do those things, and you do those things repeatedly, and you find new things that he's into and all that. And if you do that, then chances are you'll be able to really make him connected to you. I don't know about necessarily all the way whipped, but connect to you very strongly from a sensual connection. So I would advise women to do that. I think women should do that anyway. So I mentioned earlier where you should show up as your 100% best person in the connection. Like, yeah, you should be finding out what your partner wants, what they like sexually, like what makes them feel good, and you should be doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you not want to know the things that make your partner feel amazing in the bed? You should. So yeah, you should find those things out and do those things. And just by naturally doing that because you love this person and want them to feel amazing, that's also going to cause them to be sensually connected to you in a way that's just probably with like no other woman. So that's number one. Number two, some of that stuff is like out of her control. Sometimes it could be like a body thing, or the way you feel or the way he feels to her and stuff like it's a lot of different things, that factors that come into it that are out of her control. So just so she knows, like sometimes women look at women like, why is he so into her? Yeah, it could be that she's doing something, to him and with him sensually, but it could also be just like he has some kind of like attraction or fetish around a certain body type or certain. It could be a lot of stuff. Like people are really intricate when it comes to what connects them from an attraction standpoint. So it's really hard to say. But the first thing, what I said, I think women should do anyway, and that's going to help him be more into you sensually.
One of the things that I say to my client is you have to get better at receiving him. Because as I said earlier, a lot of women, even though they're saying the sex is great, when they actually describe it to me, it's actually not that great from my perspective.
Yep,
Because a lot of these women they only have clitoral orgasms. And so they're talking about pussy whipping, and I'm like, well, you're not even qualified to pussy whip him. You need to actually become more orgasmic before you can even like see yourself pussy whipping him.
absolutely. Yeah, a lot of women are not in their sexual power enough to do that. You need to be free and empowered, you know, within your intimate self, within your sensual self. You can't really be walking around with a bunch of shame and guilt and kind of weirdness around sex, like it's a weird thing. It's not a weird thing. So if you have ownership over your body and ownership over who you are as a sexual being, as a woman, then it's easy for those women to do that. I've known a lot of women like that, a lot, and yeah, like they're very sexually empowered, and they know how to make a man feel amazing, and it is addictive. You see what I'm saying? Like if I wasn't open the way I was and with so many women and so skilled myself sexually, you see what I'm saying? Then I would have a hard time now. I'd be one of these guys out here going crazy for these women, and you see what I'm saying? But no, I'm very appreciative of these women. Like I love the fact that they have so much ownership over their sexuality. They're so sexually skilled. They don't have all these weird kind of hangups and reservations and stuff. Like they just want to enjoy the experience. And yeah, I feel like those women have that ability to do that. Like they can do it almost second nature. And a lot of times those women, they have to not do certain things so that the men don't get hooked on them. I've known a lot of women like that too. Like they're like, yeah, I can't do everything because, it'll drive them crazy or whatever. Like I get it. Like a lot of men are not ready for that, unfortunately. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my advice for that.
Yeah, so lots and lots of confidence in your sexual skills.
And it takes experience.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, like, I, you know, you have to have the experience, which comes from actually interacting with men,
Dude.
a variety of men.
So, Rakem Sekou, do you have any final words for my listeners? And how can they find you, follow you, and hire you?
Yeah, folks can go to my Instagram, Rakem Sekou, RAKHEMSEKU, or Carly Stevens Jr. Click on my link in the bio, and you can reserve time where maybe we can do a free discovery call. And all my programs are on that link, so you can come check me out, and I'd love to talk to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Rakem Sekou, for helping us to understand the dark masculine man. I really appreciate you.
Good stuff. Thanks, Leslie.